Good morning to you. Well, we're getting in early this week with our Bible break, our 15 minutes or so in the Bible each week. And we're in Genesis chapter 28. We'll read the whole chapter, verses 1 to 22. And we're going to see Jacob basically on the run now after everything he's been up to. He's got to get out of there. So let's get started. Reading from my New International Version as usual. Genesis chapter 28. Here we go. So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him and commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Paddan Aram, to the house of your mother's father, Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing of Abram, so that you may take possession of the land where you now live as an alien, the land God gave to Abram." So basically the promise which we have seen so many times now made to Abram and Isaac is being made here to, or it's the blessing that Isaac is pronouncing once more upon Jacob before he leaves, before he departs. Verse 5 then. Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way. And he went to Paddan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Paddan Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, sister of Nebaioth, the daughter of Ishmael, son of Abram, in addition to the wives he already had. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, a stairway to heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abram and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." He was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, which means house of God, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. This stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. and of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. Well, I suppose the first thing to strike me, looking at this chapter, is that it seems that Isaac has got over the really nasty trick that Jacob, his son, played upon him. Or if he hasn't got over it, you remember how violently he was seized with emotion when he realized that his own son had tricked him. Well, if he hasn't completely got over that, at least he's kind of come to terms with it. And so he joins forces once again with Rebecca, his wife, Jacob's mother, to send Jacob away. It's to get a wife from amongst their people. Are the terms in which is put here, though, as we know from the last chapter, the first concern is for Jacob's own safety, because it's clear that Esau isn't getting over things in the same way, or certainly isn't getting over things as easily as his father Isaac, or he isn't coming to terms with things in the same way as his father Isaac. But here Isaac, knowing what's what, knowing who's who, fundamentally, and freely, it seems, is according Jacob, pronouncing upon Jacob a further blessing before he sends him away. Now, sadly, we get a window into Esau's own heart, because, as I say, instead of coming to terms with things and perhaps questioning himself and his ways, like I say, we get a window into Esau's heart, in that we see that he is something of a revolting son, in that we see that because they've told Jacob to take a wife from among their people, Esau's understood that, never mind his mother Rebecca, Isaac, his father, isn't happy with the choices that he's made, and with him marrying the Canaanite women, the women of the land. So what does he do? Well, instead of obeying his parents, as Jacob does here, Esau calculatedly, it seems, this is the whole point, you see, malicious intent, calculation. What can I do to hurt? What can I do to upset my parents? Never mind whether I love these women or not. What can I do to upset the family? So Esau takes more women to be his wives from the women of the country, and he does it just quite deliberately to upset his parents. So that's Esau for you. Now, in the meantime, Jacob is on his way, and we could say that he's caught in something of a no man's land, because as he flees from Esau, gets out of a sticky situation, so he finds himself in the middle of nowhere, where he must bear down for the night. So he's fleeing danger on the one hand, and on the other hand, although he knows basically where he's heading, he doesn't know very much about him or about them. So he's facing a pretty uncertain future. On the other side of things, on the other hand, and so it's in his solitude now, in his desolation, in this wilderness, somewhat of his own making, as we know, that Jacob has to bed down for the night. And so the second part of our reading today concerned this very, very famous story, actually, of what we call Jacob's ladder. It's God's ladder, actually, of course, because it's God who lays it out in the dream. But we call it Jacob's ladder because he's the one who's involved here on the ground, as it were. But this turns out to be the most wonderful surprise for Jacob, because, as I say, not just in terms of where he is physically, but in terms of his own state of mind and heart and soul. And he no doubt feels quite lost, quite abandoned as he beds down for the night. But if the Bible is clear about one thing, it is this, and it is the thing that makes the Bible much, much more than, a simple theory book or book of moral philosophy or what have you. If the Bible is clear about one thing, it is that God deals with men. It is that God meets with men. It is that God is real. It is that God is the living God, who, as I say, deals with men and deals with his people. And so, through this wonderful experience that Jacob has of the ladder with the angels descending and ascending from heaven to earth, earth to heaven, Jacob is effectively introduced personally to the God of his father Isaac and, of course, his grandfather Abram. But the wonderful realization that Jacob has is that it's actually here in the middle of nowhere that anywhere, at any given moment, can, and here actually does, become the place and the point of meeting with God. Which is why Jacob actually names the place Bethel. Bethel, which means the house of God. And quite rightly, of course, Jacob was afraid. It was his initial reaction. Because it isn't every day that you have this conscious meeting with God. And it's certainly not a little thing to meet with God, for God principally to meet with you. So in a way, he's taken aback and he's afraid. But then afterwards, he is utterly delighted to realize that it doesn't matter where he's come from, it doesn't matter where he's going. What matters is the here and now, him and God. And that God personally making to him the promise, which I've no doubt he knows, that God had previously made with his fathers. But now it's personal. And that is why he himself addresses God in personal terms at the end of our reading. As he, after his fashion, makes covenant with God from his side now. And he says, Lord, well, if this is you, and if you are with me as well as with my fathers, and you are my God as well as the God of my fathers, well, If you look after me and give me what I need, well, this is what I'm doing now. This stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. So there's that recognition that everything that Jacob has and will have comes from God and out of thankfulness. And in return, we have the origins of the tithe here. Jacob will give back to God. How and what that will entail and involve is not spelled out, but Jacob will give back to God a tenth of what God has given him. But notice, I repeat, how Jacob addresses God, you. This is personal relationship. This is personal prayer to the God who has met with him. And as I was saying, the Bible is clear about this. The God who met with Jacob meets with people. This is ongoing. This is who God is. This is what God is like. He does not remain at a distance, but he comes to people. And if he hasn't already, he might even come to you. So I leave you with that, and I'll see you next time around.